For 500 years, the Calradian Empire dominated the continent. Its armies scattered foes before them. The strongholds of proud tribes crumbled beneath its engines of war. From the forests of the north to the wastes of the south, all was brought beneath the standard of their legions. Brutal as the conquest was, the wise agreed that it brought peace. The land, now untroubled by armies, grew rich. But empires, like men, grow old. Leaders lose a common cause. Corruption spreads. Old enemies learn the Empire's tricks and devise new ones of their own. Until one day, the bonds holding the Empire snap. Then comes the Civil War, pitting all against all. A time of hatred. A time of suffering. But also, even in the worst hours, a time of courage and defiance. As new leaders arise, from new places and new peoples, to turn back the tides of destruction and bring forth a new world from the ashes of the old.
Knights of YouTube, we have finally returned to the lands of Calradia to begin a brand new adventure for our channel. This is in fact the Banner Kings mod for Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Banner Kings and the Banner Kings Cultures expanded submod, it is essentially a type of overhaul mod that does not change the map, but does change a lot in the way of functions and features and customizability and everything like that. It adds in a lot of diplomatic capabilities. Imagine if all of the diplomacy features from Crusader Kings were suddenly inserted into Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord. That is essentially what we're looking at here. Now, the mod itself does in fact overhaul a lot of the cultures here. As you can see, there are a ton of brand new cultures for us to test out here. You do have the starting 6, beginning with the Osrikin, the Sturgiski, the Calradia, the Nahasawi, the Devseglar, sorry, that one's always kind of tough, the Battanians as well. So these are in fact the Battanians. Now, among my favorite cultures of the Banner Kings mod, we do have the Osrikin, who are essentially the Wilundians. Now, the Osrikin and several other cultures within the mod all share the same roots. They are the Wilundings, who come from the Kingdom of West Overseas. Now, the other cultures connected to the Osrikin are the Swedish, which is the second largest Wilunding tribe. Then we have the Rodox, who is the third largest of the Wilunding tribes and the most looked down upon. They do not follow the same tenets as far as horsemanship or knighthood or anything like that. And then lastly, we have the Battanians, and I want to read this little last bit of the passage here. It says, one could think of the Battanians as the tradition that binds all the Wilunding tribes unbesmirched by Calradia. So essentially, the Battanians are those who come from Balian, the land from whence the Wilundings came, the Kingdom of West Overseas. So this is where the all the Wilunding tribes of Calradia get their roots, is from Balian. But, you know, I'm a huge sympathizer for the Wilundians of this game, so we will be playing as the Osrikin, and I would love to read this little lore blurb for you guys. Claiming themselves the descendants of Osrikin, the Osrikin are one of the largest Wilunding tribes that migrated from west overseas. Among the original tribes, the Osrikin hold the greatest sway, represented by Durthert de Marok, who styles himself king of all the Wilunding. A comfortable lie. Theirs is also the tradition of horsemanship and gallantry, which they hold highest among the original tribes. The Osrikin, having consolidated power over the Calradia, were at the vanguard of reorganizing their kingdom into a feudal, organized structure, rather than a confederation of squabbling tribes. Such ideas were taken from the conquered Calradia institutions and nobility, many of whom intermarried with the newly settled Wilunding tribes. An easier choice than being butchered. Such mixing created a culture and language distinctively divergent from their original Wilunding origins, for relegating the other tribes to inferior positions as well as their increasingly Calradia-like tendencies. Other Wilunding tribes accused the Osrikin of betraying tradition and claimed their lineage a farce. Now I love this little lore blurb that they threw in here for the Osrikin culture. I think it's pretty badass. I love the fact that the heart of their tradition comes from horsemanship and gallantry, which I think is really, really cool. And I also think the fact that the other Wilunding tribes and other cultures from our roots in Balian look down upon us, even though we are the majority of the Wilunding population in Western Calradia. It gives us a lot of opportunity to be able to roleplay almost like a transformation of the culture in order to, I don't know, maybe fix that relationship between the other tribes and the other cultures of the Wilundings from west overseas. Now, as far as our boosts and our debuffs, we do start off with Wilunding horsemanship, so mounted troops require less experience to upgrade. Renowned sellswords, which is basically just the increased renown from battles and the increased income while serving as a mercenary. We also get Osrikin Gallantry. Clans have an extra war party. Even starting off at clan tier 0, we get 1 extra war party, which means before we even sign on to become a mercenary, we can start with 2 war parties to take on some pretty massive enemy armies, I think, which would be very cool, I think. Lastly, we do have Osrikin feudalism, so under the feudal government, non-rulers have increased political leverage, while rulers have increased legitimacy. So again, we do see a lot of the features and functions from Crusader Kings, specifically going on with like the titles and inheritance and everything like that, as far as the feudalistic government structure, now finally implemented into Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord, which I think is going to be a ton of fun. Now, as for our debuffs, we do also get Arrogant Overlords, which decreases our fief stability. But again, we won't be starting off with a fief here, so that's not that big of an issue. We also have Autonomous Lords, so recruiting lords to armies costs 20% more influence. That one is pretty basic. I think that's also part of the vanilla debuffs for the Vlandian culture. But nonetheless, lads, we will be starting off as the Osrikins of Western Calradia. And here is our character, lads. I think he looks pretty good. I absolutely love this this hairstyle that the game has. This is actually the hairstyle that we chose for Sir Barond in our very first Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord series. So, you know, this is a bit of an homage to that man. Rest in peace to an absolute legend, Sir Barond, and his queen, Elena. But anyway, lads, here is our character. The goal is to try and start him off, like, looking pretty young, and then letting him, you know, grow up and grow facial hair as the series goes along and everything. I think would be a nice touch in order to help showcase, like, the passing of time and everything. And honestly, I do really enjoy some of these facial hair looks, even with, like, the bright blonde, like, platinum blonde hair. I think it looks really good. I am a huge fan of how this character turned out. And I'm excited to see how his journey unfolds. Now, as for this character's background, we will be playing as the son of a baron's retainers. Your father was a bailiff for a local feudal magnate. He looked after his liege's estates, resolved disputes in the village, and helped train the village levy. He rode with the lord's cavalry, fighting as an armored knight. which I think would be the perfect start here. So we are going to be starting off with +1 to our riding skills and +1 to our polearm. And as a child, we were noted for our skill with horses, again getting us +1 to horsemanship and +1 to our endurance, but also 1 additional focus point towards our medicine skill. Like all village children, we also helped out in the fields, but we also sold produce in the market. You took your family's goods to the nearest town to sell your produce and buy supplies. It was hard work, but you enjoyed the hubbub of the marketplace. Hubbub is a funny word, I like that. Anyway, the point of choosing this is to help increase our social skills and then give us +1 to charm. The +1 to trade isn't that bad. I do know that the economy is a lot tougher in Banner Kings compared to vanilla Bannerlord, so having that increased focus point in trade is going to help us out, I believe. But again, I have never played this mod before, so this is going to be a first time for all of us lads. As a youngster growing up in Calradia, war was never too far away. You... ... I believe training with the cavalry makes the most sense here. We are going for a bit of a horseman build here, and then following in the footsteps of our father, who was a mounted knight as well. I think it's going to make the most sense to say that we trained with the cavalry. You could never have brought the equipment on your own, but you were a good enough rider so that the local lord lent you a horse and equipment. You joined the armored cavalry training with the lance. I think that's pretty cool. Now, before you set out for a life of adventure, your biggest achievement was ... Now, originally, I was going to choose treating people well. This will help increase our social skills and our charm, giving us the ability to make friends among the lords and even our enemies going forward, which, as you all know, is a huge bonus for the late game playstyle and everything like that. However, it does give us the merciful trait right off the bat, and we actually don't want that, and I'm going to explain why in just a moment. But for now, I do believe that defeating an enemy in battle will be our biggest benefit here, giving us +1 to both one-handed and two-handed weapon mastery and increasing our overall vigor. Not everyone who musters for the levy marches to war, and not everyone who goes on campaign sees action. You did both, and you also took down an enemy warrior in direct one-to-one combat in the full view of your comrades, which I think is pretty cool. This is going to help start us off with the daring trait, increasing our valor. So, now being a relatively young man, we are in our prime. We will be starting off our adventure at the age of 30, giving us 4 unspent focus points and 2 unspent attribute points. And now here it is, lads, our beautiful banner and sigil. If this looks familiar, it's because it is. You guys have been secretly voting for the details of this current playthrough in our community polls on the YouTube community tab. Our most recent poll had you choose a banner that you enjoyed, and this was the winning banner. So this is the official look for our knightly order going forward for this brand new Banner Kings adventure. Now here is our character. This is Eothane. I did give him a bit of a Lord of the Rings inspired name because our current, faction build is inspired by the Rohirrim pretty loosely. There is a lot of Anglo-Saxon inspired symbolism here going forward through this faction build of ours. I do think he looks really, really cool. I love the overall character design. Even the name just fits really well for the way he looks. So he is Eothane, son of Eadrid. Now going through the community polls to see exactly what it is you all voted upon. When asked whom you would swear your medieval knightly oath to, you all chose first and foremost to swear your oath to the people of your realm, secondly to your god, thirdly to your own heart and soul, and then lastly to your liege lord and king. So we are going to be a bit of the rebellious type. King Durthert will most likely not like us throughout this campaign. But we will be a friend of the people, so I think starting off with pretty decent social and charm skills is going to help us out there. Now, when asked what path you would take if you were the leader or the lord of your own knightly warband or war party, first and foremost, you guys are kind of greedy. You guys said, my crown and my throne. You would take the the path of forging your own kingdom rather than bending the knee to somebody else. Secondly, you also chose to forsake any and all titles in order to serve the people. So we're seeing a bit of a trend here, choosing to serve the people, becoming a servant of the small folk. Now, thirdly, you said for king and country, so showing a little bit of that country pride, that cultural pride, and serving your liege lord. And then lastly, for gold and glory. Now, this poll will help represent Eothane's personal aspirations. He is, in fact, the lord and leader of his own war party and his own warband. So he will be out on the path, seeking to forge his own kingdom within the lands of Calradia, hoping to raise his banner high and rally his people and his allies under that banner. When asked what knightly identity you would follow into battle, it was very, very close. This poll was split 40% for steed knights, the mounted noble warriors who bind themselves spiritually to their mounts, and then 38% for the shield wall knights who forsake cavalry, forsake archery in favor of fighting hand-to-hand, face-to-face with their foes. But because the Steed Knights pulled ahead by 2%, we will be playing as a horseman-centered cavalry kind of playthrough here. And then last but not least, when asked what you would do if you were pitted against an enemy nation that has foreign gods and false gods and everything like that, you all chose to slay the pagans first and pray for forgiveness later. It was a pretty close vote, like right off the bat. So 58% chose to slay the pagans and pray for forgiveness, and then 42% chose to show mercy to the poor, misguided souls of the foreign nations. I think that's pretty interesting. Perhaps we won't be as harsh to the to the people. We'll do like a mixture of both and say, I don't know, convert to our gods or you shall die. Those of you who choose heresy over the righteousness of the true religion, then you shall face the blade. But again, this is all mostly for roleplay purposes anyway, so there's very few game mechanics that are actually going to influence the ability for us to showcase any of this, but we will get to that in just a moment. And then, of course, we will be playing on the hardest difficulty possible because you guys love to see me torture myself, apparently, and I love torturing myself for your viewing pleasure. So I hope you sick sadists absolutely enjoy. Now, right off the bat, we are greeted with the Banner King's welcome pop-up. Welcome to the Banner Kings mod. Before starting your campaign, you should pick a custom start and a religion for your character first. You can also read on topics of the mod. All of these topics are available in the concepts page of the encyclopedia. Now, first and foremost, we will be choosing our custom start. I will be going for the mercenary build here. As much as I love the idea of starting off as an indebted lord, I think that's kind of jumping the gun a little bit, especially considering you guys chose not to swear loyalty or an oath to your liege lord, but more so to the people. That being said, a robbed caravaneer doesn't make sense. Being an outlaw certainly does not fit that same virtue or value. A gladiator is cool, but doesn't fit the Western European style. That's more of like an empire style playthrough, I think. And then, of course, you can play as an adventurer, which is just the vanilla start. However, that sounds boring, and there's actually a lot of benefits that come with starting off as a mercenary. So start with a mercenary band in desperate need for plundering gold and food. Party morale is reduced for 5 years. The mercenary lifestyle is kickstarted as part of your education. And then there's another little lore blurb here in the banner off to the side. You serve as a free mercenary company roaming around the continent in search of employment. After a long period of joblessness, you find your company on the verge of collapse, with little morale, food, and finances. So we will be starting off with only 250 gold, 22 mercenary men to kick us off in our party, and then only 30 morale. But we also start off as a criminal with a bit of a criminal rating somewhere else in the continent. Now, for those of you who are curious, and I know you will be curious, starting off as an indebted lord does not start you off with like a massive city or a castle. I believe it only starts you off with a village as your fief. Either that or even just a minor estate within a village. It doesn't start you off with a whole, like, you know, a whole castle or city or anything. But for that purpose, we will be starting off as a mercenary, and then it is time to choose our religion. Now, for this playthrough, we will be playing as the Osfeyd religion. So the Osfeyd, or the faith in the gods in the Wilunding tongue, is the combined beliefs brought by the various Wilunding peoples, woven together by the prophecy of Horsa, made true by Osrikin. In search of new fertile farmland, the Wilunding have killed the Calradic gods in the west, which I think is pretty cool. Not, you know, killing the gods, obviously, but... So we start off with 100 piety. The natural culture is the Osrikin, so this is the Osrikin national religion. Other accepted cultures include the Osrikin, the Massa, the Swedish, the Rodox, and the Battanians, the other Wilunding tribes and everything like that. And I believe that is it, so we are going to finish this up. And now it'll have us choose what kingdom we will be recognized as a criminal in. For me personally, I feel like... I don't know, I feel like the Khuzaits kind of make sense because they are the other cavalry, horseman-centric kind of nation there. So obviously our ideologies when it comes to horsemanship varies from theirs. However, I also think making natural enemies with the Battanians also makes sense. It'll give us a good opportunity to roleplay a bit of like a holy war against the savages of the west or of the east and everything like that. So I think I'm gonna go for the Battanians here. Yeah, your criminal rating with the Battanians has increased by 50. That's tough. So they're not gonna like us at all, ever. But here we are, lads, so we are starting off right here, just outside of the city of Velukad. Now, when it comes to our mounted steed knights of this playthrough, I know there was a lot of concern for the fact that we do a lot of mounted knight playthroughs on this channel, and despite the fact that it's just kind of my chosen niche, my, you know, lovely little personality that I've built on this channel, there is a reason I chose to do another cavalry-centered playthrough in this new series of ours, and that is because we will be using the horses mod. I do believe it's just called horses, if I'm being honest, but what it does is it gives you the opportunity to name your horse and thus begin bonding with said horse. The more you utilize this horse in combat, the more you ride around with it, the more boosts and bonuses it gets to its speed, its maneuverability, and its charge damage. Now, as far as I know, only the player character can start bonding with their horse, but I also think it'll be a cool opportunity to add another character that we care about. You know, y'all remember when we played Ghost of Tsushima and your horse dies, it was heartbreaking, and now we have that same opportunity here, plus a little extra capabilities for role-playing by giving our horse a name, giving us some kind of spiritual connection to this horse, so it's more than just a tool used in the game's features and functionality. That being said, we will go ahead and rename our first horse the name of Solwyn. So now that we've named our horse, we have begun the bonding process. So far we're at 0%, which makes sense, but we've also just started the game. So the goal is to try and not change our horse until we've completely bonded with this one, and then if we happen to find another horse that has better stats with it, then we can bond with another horse. But for now, Solwyn is our bonded brethren in the field of battle. Man and mount are one. Now, when playing as a mercenary, you do start off with a pretty sizable mercenary company with a bunch of mercenary guards, mercenary swordsmen, a scout, and then some crossbowmen as well. For this playthrough, however, we are actually going to fire all of these men. It will not suit us at all to have any of these mercenary men within our company, demanding money, demanding this and that and otherwise, and so we shall reform our party in the hopes of creating a more knightly, more deserving military structure for our build here. That being said, of course, we will be playing with the My Little Warband mod, where we create our own custom units of troops. So here we go with our newest military build here. God, I love playing this game. Now, to introduce our basic unit tree, we do have the fieldmen. These guys are the basic workers and farmers within the fields, out there tilling the fields and sowing the grain and everything like that. They live in the plains and in the hills of the western Calradian hills. And of course, they've picked up a sword and spear and a shield in order to wield for our benefit here. Now, down the infantry side, we do have the Field Guard. I tried to give these guys a bit of an Anglo-Saxon look. I have been rewatching The Last Kingdom, and of course, the Saxons there. Just the overall costume design just looks truly, truly amazing. And so I tried to encapsulate a little bit of that within our faction build. So we do have the Field Guard, a basic short spearman, basically, with a shield and a one-handed axe. From the Field Guard, we do have the Spearmen. Again, just another basic Spearman unit, just a little more heavily armored. Then we have our Heavy Spearmen, so obviously more heavily armored than its previous predecessor. But man, these guys look so good. I love the Empires of Europe helmets and everything, and the cosmetics. They just look truly, truly amazing here. And then lastly, we have our Wallermen. These guys are supposed to be like the main bulk of our shield wall. They look truly, truly devastating. This helmet here, this painted Spanish masked helmet, is actually painted for the secondary colors. So this yellow here for the yellow and red of the Vlandians. Once we get them into our party, I believe this yellow is going to show up blue, considering blue is our secondary color here, which I think is going to be absolutely epic. I think these guys look super, super cool. I love the painted masked helmets. I think they look truly, truly menacing. Now, on the other side of our infantry tree, that's funny, we actually have our line breakers. Now, these guys are a bit of more of the Rodok side of that culture that we've seen. They are a bit of the savage fighters. They wield two-handed great cleavers, and they have throwing javelins that, you know, represent their more savage cultures from the eastern borders of our western nation. And again, the new cosmetics, the new armors and everything like that, they truly never failed to impress, because this is such a beautiful look for this unit, I think. From the line breaker, we have the heavy line breaker, not the most intuitive naming process, I know, but we do have some pretty heavily armored chainmail here, and then again, a more heavily armored version of that same western helmet. And then the opposite of the Wallerman, we have the Wall Breaker. Not a part of the shield wall formation, but one who takes apart the enemy shield wall formations. And again, the painted faced masks and everything like that, they look truly, truly menacing, and I can't wait to see them on the field of battle. But of course, no military structure is complete without their archer units, so we do have the Field Scouts. Again, just a little bit basic, you know, leather padded armors here and there. I think they look pretty cool, not gonna lie, kind of like them. From the Field Scout, we have our Marksmen. Again, just a little more heavily armored. They do have the painted helmets as well. Then we have our Mark Master. And then lastly, our Ritter Mark. I love that. I think they look really, really good. And again, the painted helmets just look truly amazing. But then the true heart and soul of our military comes from our cavalry. So we begin with the light skirmisher. These guys will encircle the enemy formations and launch volley after volley of throwing javelins into their shields, weakening their shield walls, weakening their resolves. And once they are out of ammunition, they will charge in and rip the enemies asunder with their arming swords. From the light skirmisher, we have the heavy skirmisher. These guys actually come equipped with a two-handed fine steel hooked axe. Yeah, these guys look pretty cool. Love it. And then lastly, we have our main ward. These lads are the wardens of our trusted steeds. They are the bulk, the captains of our basic military troops, and they will be leading the charge into the enemy lines. And while the basic infantry troops make up the bulk of our standing military, the bulk of our knightly order will come from our elite tier cavalry units. So we begin with the Steed Squire. Now, a lot of the armor concepts here follow a pretty standard like pathing or like upgrade plan, I think. So they look very much like an upgraded version of their predecessor, and I think they look really, really cool. So I hope you guys enjoy these character designs, because man, I loved building them for you, that's for sure. But we do have our Steed Squire. Kicking things off, these guys are learning the way of the horse, the steed, and steel style of warfare that we have here. Now, if the Steed Squire proves themselves in combat, following alongside their knight, they can level up and learn a focus. So we have our Sword Squire. These guys look pretty cool, and this is where we'll start to see a lot of that continuation or continuity, I guess, of the character design. So now we have a lot of chainmail going forward. So from the Sword Squire, we have the Great Sword. Again, more of that heavy chainmail look. Some more painted helmets, round top helmets. They look truly amazing. And then we have our Sword Knight. These guys again are more of the skirmisher types down this tree. But again, a two-handed steel longsword, and then 3 sets of throwing javelins. And of course, they kind of have this Dane style helm, or this like Anglo-Saxon style helm. I think it looks truly, truly amazing. And then lastly, we have our Great Knight. God, I love these guys. Named so because of the Dargan Great Helm that they have. They have a couple of different variants here, including some painted variants. And then charging forth in a thunderous charge, we have our Lance Squires down the Lancer side of our elite military. So we do have the Lance Squire here, and these guys will kick off the new cosmetic theme of the tabard, the noble tabard looks. I think it looks really, really cool. So we have the Lance Squire with a couple of different variants here. Into the Heavy Lancer, these guys have the nice Vlandian style or Wilunding style tabard and chainmail, which I think looks really, really good. And then a return of that painted masked helmet as well. We then have our Lance Knight. These guys actually have what is called the heraldic armor. So once we get one into our party, these guys will actually have our banner and sigil and the color scheme placed all over this tabard, which I think is really, really cool. And lastly, our Dawn Knight. These guys look great. Yeah, we return again with the steel scale armor. There wasn't another high tier like tabard armor to utilize here, so I thought reusing the steel scale looks really, really good. And even with the cape, I think it looks truly, truly amazing. Now, a wise man once said, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, make sure to bring your friends with you. That being said, it is time to introduce our... Whoops. Wrong tab. It is time to introduce our clan members. We are joined in our adventure by the fellow Westerners of the Osrikin culture, or mostly Osrikin culture. So we do have Edith the Fell Maiden. She will be our scout. She is a war maiden, as it was, though she has learned to become merciful in her years on the battlefield by becoming a wise woman in the ways of medicine and healing. Or I apologize, she's our scout. I apologize, because Marwyn, Lady Marwyn, is our healer. She comes from the lands that border the eastern trees of Battania, and has learned their ways of the herbs and medicinal, likeliness and everything like that. Next up, we are joined by possibly my most favorite character from The Last Kingdom. This is Aldhelm. I tried to make him look as closely related to Aldhelm as I could from the show, and I think I did a pretty damn good job. I think he looks really, really good. Anyway, this is Aldhelm of Mercia. He is actually going to be our engineer and our smith. He is quite well renowned in the ways of crafting and smithing and everything like that. Here he is, the lad. I love him. I think he looks really good, and he shares the Osrikin culture as ourselves, as Eothane. And then lastly, no war party is complete without a man as wise in both or as experienced in leading military warbands and in military structures as Leofric of Wessex, a man of Wessex himself. Now, this man does share the Rhodokian blood of his forefathers and everything like that, but he fights for the well-being of all Wilundings, and he will be taking over as our steward for our war party. And for those of you who have been wondering, because I have put it off until now, we are in fact known as the Dawn Rider Brotherhood. I thought a nice little change in pace from what we're used to. Obviously, we are still going for that horseman vibe and cavalry vibe and everything like that, but we will be doing it under a brand new guise, a brand new banner, and a brand new standard of war. One last thing I forgot to mention, lads, is the introduction of both lifestyles, education, and now faith as well into the Banner Kings mod. So, because we started off as a mercenary, we will get 20% more profitable influence when serving as a mercenary. So every time that we gain influence as a mercenary with the mercenary contracts for our nation, they will pay us 20% more on top of our already contracted rate from that mercenary contract, which I think is truly, truly amazing. But the further you progress in your lifestyle, the more of these lifestyle perks you can unlock. We have already the local connections perk unlocked, so while serving as a mercenary, gain the ability to recruit from local minor factions and towns. And on a personal note, we are recruiting mercenary troops as 10% cheaper, which I think is really, really cool. Considering we are the mercenary, I don't think that personal perk will help us out at all, but being the party leader, the ability to recruit from local minor factions and towns will be pretty beneficial, I think, especially considering how ruthless the recruiting is in this mod as well. But of course, there are a couple more perks for us to unlock, and there are several other lifestyles that we can unlock that were not showcased at all in the custom start of the Banner Kings mod. So you have the Ritter, which is basically German for knight, which utilize the lordship and the riding traits. So I do believe that is something that we can look forward to becoming. For the time being, we will just be Eothane, but if we manage to become a Ritter or a knight among the Battanians or the Wilundings, as it were, we will be able to change our name to Sir Eothane, which I think would be a really cool roleplay opportunity there. Of course, you can also learn languages, you can read books to help increase your skills. So if I go out and I find a book about smithing and I read that full book, then I can gain some smithing XP. I think that's really, really awesome. But lastly, we will be talking about our faith. Again, we are part of the Osfeyd faith, the mixed tribes of the Wilunding peoples here in Western Calradia. Now, we do have several aspects that are specific to our faith. We have the Wilunding faiths. Our faith seat is Osrikin. We do not have a head of faith, which is good, which means we won't have to do any ass-kissing to clergymen in order to get ahead with the other members of our religion. We are allowed to take up to 3 concubines, but I don't think that's something that Eothane would do, being the noble, honorable knight, even if it is, religiously, accepted or anything like that. Now, in our polytheism, we do have a pantheon of 4 different gods. We have the smith god Wilund, significantly increased renown and influence from battles, which I think is just absolutely beautiful, paired up with the fact that we already make 5% more influence and income as a mercenary with the Osrikin culture. Now we also get increased renown and influence, and then that increased profitability from every influence point by serving as a mercenary. We are bound to make just massive loads of money. So I'm really excited to be able to kick off this adventure. But anyway, other than Wilund, the smith god, we have Osric Ironarm himself, the sun god. On capturing a fief, immediately receive a claim for it. So for those of you who remember the laying a claim faction or function in Crusader Kings 3, if you claim a title, you can then go to war and try and claim that title itself and become the new lord of said title. So upon capturing a fief in war, we immediately receive a claim for it as well, as sanctioned by our sun god Osric the Iron Arm. And then, of course, our chosen personal, I guess, more for roleplay purposes, but our chosen patron will be Horsa, the horse god, increased village prosperity, and improved offensive battle morale. Now, obviously, this doesn't have a lot of functions for us early game right off the bat. However, being able to roleplay, having Horsa as our patron saint, as the horse god of the Osfeyd religion, and then obviously our spiritual connection with our mounts as part of the roleplay and the horses mod, I think is going to go hand to hand really, really well for the roleplay going forward. And then lastly, we have Okka, the ox god, improved town prosperity and increased farmland acreage output. Again, that we'll mostly have to do once we get an actual estate or an actual lordship, but because we don't have either, it's not going to benefit us at all at this point. But still interesting to see that we have the gods on our side, quite literally. Now, as far as our rights, we do have Warhorse Sacrifice, make an offering of 10 Valenby coursers as the faith prescribes. I don't believe in doing that. I'm not going to sacrifice my mount to appease the gods. I don't think that would appease Horsa, the horse god, at all, sacrificing war horses. I think that's a little weird. However, the lance offerings and offering to Horsa, the prophet horse god, to honor him for giving us the spirit to carve our kingdom. I think that's pretty badass. I think that really fits the roleplay very, very well for our faction and our build here. May be performed every 2 years, requires a weapon of the type two-handed polearm. Essentially, we just take what is it? Oh, it doesn't say. It doesn't say how many. But we take a bunch of lances and we, I don't know, throw them on a funeral pyre, I guess, in order to appease Horsa, the horse god. So that's pretty kick-ass. As far as our doctrines go, we do have Osric's vengeance, occupying fiefs yields significant piety, and then animism, woodland acreage provides piety, and reduced baseline fervor, which I don't think really benefits us right off the bat. But either way, it's interesting to see. Now, our virtues, again, when it came to asking you guys what you would do when faced against a religious holy war of a pagan or heretical foreign nation, you guys chose not to be merciful, or at least less than merciful, and that kind of fits in very, very well with the virtues of the Osfeyd faith, because when it comes to the merciful trait, it actually says that sadistic is considered virtuous. Having the mercy trait would give us -1 piety per month, which would hurt us in the eyes of our religion. Now, having valor, having fearless is considered virtuous. The fact that we have valor gives us plus 0.1 per month to our religion, or our piety, so that's going to help us out a ton as well. And then lastly, it says ambition. Ambition isn't really a trait here, but I think it's interesting that they mentioned that as well. We are, in fact, a nation of sellswords and upstarts and everything like that, so it's interesting. Now, we do have a ton of clergymen, but we have a lot more members of the faith. God, it's so many. And here we are, all the way down at the bottom, Eothane of the Dawn Rider Brotherhood. So, anyway, lads, I do believe we will leave this video off here. This was just a bit of I guess like a primer to the build that we're doing here. I wanted to explain the mods that we're utilizing. I wanted to explain a bit of the plan going forward. This will take over as our main Mountain Blade series going forward. I do hope you all enjoy. I'm very, very excited to get this started and to start the bonding process with our horse, our steed. But again, you all did in fact show your true colors when it was said what path you would take if you were the leader of your own knightly banner. That being said, all of this is towards the ultimate goal of becoming a landed vassal of the West, and then potentially even raising our own banner and becoming king of these Western nations, of these Western shores. But alas, only time will tell, lads, and until that time comes, always, always, always remember, honor and service glory and sacrifice. And I, Eothane, Lord of the Dawnrider Brotherhood, and the Knights of the Wilundings, will see you in the battles ahead. Goodbye, my friends.